Yeah, I watched my friend get shot in the neck. Yeah, that's what happened. I just want to say that he was publicly executed again before the world. The question is why, right?
You're next. Those 2 words weren't whispered into a microphone, posted online, or even caught by accident. They were delivered directly, according to Candace Owens, by Ye himself, and they weren't meant as a joke. The warning came during a private conversation just days after the public execution-style shooting of Charlie Kirk. And according to Owens, Ye didn't hedge or hint. He spelled it out. If she keeps digging into Kirk's case, if she doesn't back down, then whatever forces took Kirk off the board might come for her next.
And I want to be very clear that I believe, in fact, I know that towards the end, Charlie was fighting for custody of himself. I want to say that. I want to say that plainly, and there are lies that are being told and they need to be slapped down right now.
Now, we've seen Ye spiral, we've seen him provoke, we've seen him claim to hold secrets that sound more like tabloid fodder than actionable threats. But here's the difference this time. Owens believed him. Not only did she repeat the warning on her podcast, she tied it directly to the investigation into Kirk's shooting. Her tone wasn't performative. It wasn't posturing for clicks. It sounded like a person who's been let in on something off the record, something terrifying, something real. Because here's what else we know. 33 hours after the shot rang out on the Utah Valley University campus, a single bullet fired from an elevated position into Kirk's neck mid-speech, the FBI had already arrested a suspect. 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, no clear motive, no military background, no history of public extremism, and no answers. He was picked up wearing a t-shirt and jeans, no gun on him, no gear. But the shooter seen in the only circulating rooftop video? Full tactical outfit. Helmet, plate carrier, tactical boots. Even the weapon looked mismatched. An eyewitness later told Owens the rifle in the shooter's hands didn't match the weapon police eventually tied to Robinson.
It's yelling, I shot him, now shoot me. I shot him, now shoot me. And then that guy gets arrested for child charges. Like, he's like, what is going on here?
So
and then
weird.
you find this rifle, and then you say, oh, he assembled it and he reassembled it. Like, okay. I wish I was a cop. I'd sit in a room like, this story is horse.
Gets worse. The student who took the rooftop video, now reportedly cooperating with Owens and not law enforcement, says he flagged the shooter immediately. He described the man in full black gear, perched above the crowd before the shot. He says he told campus security on the spot, but campus logs make no mention of the alert, and security footage from the exact time was mysteriously under review for days. And this isn't just about the shooter's outfit. When investigators swept the rooftop, they allegedly recovered 3 shell casings with inscriptions. One said, "Hey fascist, catch." Another read, "Oh, Bella Ciao," an anti-fascist resistance slogan. These are not the markings of a lone wolf. These are calling cards, trolling, ideological, and deliberate. The FBI has still not explained how a 22-year-old electrician's apprentice with no known affiliations pulled off a sniper-level strike, left sarcastic clues, and got back to his apartment across the state in time to be arrested without resistance. And that's where Joe Rogan comes in. He didn't jump in with conspiracy theories, not at first. He was elk hunting when the news broke, recording backlogged episodes. But when he came back on air, something changed. Rogan doesn't usually engage with right-wing martyrdom stories. Charlie Kirk was too partisan, too polarizing for Rogan's libertarian lane. But this time he lost his patience. His exact words, "Shut the f*** up." He was talking about the official story, about the idea that an untrained 22-year-old somehow disassembled a long rifle, smuggled it into a high-surveillance college campus, scaled a rooftop in broad daylight wearing visible tactical gear, took the shot, and disappeared without being spotted. Rogan called it horse. Flat out, he mocked the timeline, questioned the logistics, wondered aloud how the shooter got to the roof in the first place. And when a guest brought up the sniper's rooftop vantage point, Rogan looked visibly disturbed. This wasn't just random, he said, this was surgical.
He set it up in a way that, like, okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
right,
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird going on with this.
I know.
Now, Rogan going off script is one thing, but when Owens starts leaking Kirk's demise to an international cover-up, eyebrows go up. According to her, this wasn't a domestic hate crime or a partisan act or even an unhinged protest. She claims Kirk was targeted because of what he was starting to say behind closed doors. About Israel, about Turning Point's funding, about the war in Gaza. She's floated allegations that he was being pressured by Israeli political operatives and American financiers, including hedge fund titan Bill Ackman, to tone down his messaging. She even claimed Ackman threatened Kirk during a private intervention weeks before the shooting. Ackman's response? He published cordial texts and denied everything, but Netanyahu issued not one, but 2 public denials of Israeli involvement. Why deny a conspiracy that no official ever accused you of unless it's gaining traction behind the scenes?
To drive you crazy and to just go, okay, I'm just gonna accept whenever the authority says something and not prod any further. We can't allow that to happen here. I won't allow that to happen here because this something terrible has traumatized the world, okay? And I feel as though when it comes to this, the media, the government, the talking heads, everyone is confusing us about what actually took place.
And here's the kicker. The FBI is allegedly leaning hard on Utah prosecutors to wrap the case. Not pursue co-conspirators, not re-examine ballistics, not test the shooter's gear. According to Owens, they've warned that if Robinson isn't formally charged as the lone gunman, the entire prosecution might fall apart. That's pressure, not procedure, especially since Robinson isn't talking. Governor Spencer Cox confirmed it himself. Robinson is stonewalling investigators. No confession, no motive, no explanation. But his roommate, the one reportedly transitioning and allegedly in a relationship with him, has been very cooperative. She's told authorities that Robinson was radicalized online, sucked into far-left echo chambers. She described his descent into deep, dark internet culture. But here's the problem. It's too perfect. One roommate telling the entire narrative, one suspect refusing to speak, and a trail of evidence that raises more questions than it answers.
Yeah, you get some kid who has a boyfriend who's a furry, and you talk to him on Discord. I think he's a furry. I don't want to disrespect.
I don't know if that's a real thing.
His boyfriend's definitely a guy who became a girl.
And wears furry stuff.
I think they do furry. Furry games, excuse me.
Because according to campus records, Robinson had never attended a Turning Point event, never posted about Kirk, never expressed political opinions beyond a few ironic memes. His family is staunchly conservative. His past social media shows no activism, and according to federal officials, even the inscriptions on the shell casings read more like meme culture satire than serious ideology. If you read this, you are part of the rainbow community. It isn't manifesto material, it's internet troll speak. So who left them there? And why would a supposedly radicalized assassin risk blowing his cover with joke messages on hot brass? Meanwhile, Owens' own history with Turning Point is messy. She was pushed out of the organization in 2019 after a storm of backlash over comments about Adolf Hitler's domestic policies. But she and Kirk remained personally close. Close enough that Kirk appeared in West's documentary, silently seated between Owens and West, during a conversation about being black conservatives in a media war. That footage, recorded in 2018, was released just days after Kirk's shooting, reigniting questions about why Kirk was even in the room. He didn't speak in the clip, he didn't direct the conversation, but he was there, listening, and now he's gone.
To research and to investigate, and nothing is making sense. Now, it could not be making sense because we've not arrived at the conclusion. The FBI, I will say, has recently come out and said they're looking for another person. Good, because what we have so far obviously cannot be it. I feel
What we're left with is a case full of half-buried inconsistencies, a suspect who won't talk, a roommate who talks too well, and a chorus of high-profile voices from Rogan to Carlson to Owens, all circling the same uneasy question. Who really ordered the hit? Because if it wasn't Robinson alone, then who helped? Who supplied the gear? Who set up the vantage point? Who erased the surveillance footage? And why is the FBI in such a hurry to close the book? And that brings us back to Ye, because if we believe Owens, if we take her at her word, then the man who spent years playing chaos agent on the world stage suddenly sounds like the only person trying to stop another shot. He didn't say be careful. He didn't say watch your back. He said you're next. No interpretation, no metaphor. And in the weeks since that warning, Owens has only doubled down. Not just on her theory, but on her target list. She's naming names, suggesting that a mole inside Turning Point America is leaking internal communications. She's even implied that someone in Kirk's inner circle may have known the attack was coming, or at least that something was off. She says the security at the event was weirdly relaxed. The camera above Kirk's chair, she claims, was tampered with 3 minutes after the shot. There's video. It's grainy, but it shows someone adjusting the angle. The FBI hasn't identified them.
And he was publicly executed. I want to make that clear. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed before the world. And as we are all searching for answers, the ones that are being supplied to us are not making a lot of sense. And some people, I would say, are speaking too much, are speaking on behalf of other people. I don't like it.
And then there's the construction. Less than a week after the shooting, the rooftop where the sniper was allegedly positioned was suddenly under renovation. Owens posted photos of scaffolding, tarps, yellow tape, not police tape, contractor tape. She claims evidence was destroyed. That they didn't even complete forensic scanning of the wall behind the shooter's position. Why rush cleanup if the case is open? Why remove potential shrapnel, trajectory markings, or thermal residue? Owens believes the answer is obvious. Someone's pulling strings. She won't say who, not yet, but she keeps circling back to one thing, that if she doesn't speak up now, she may not get another chance. She's turned her podcast into a rolling investigation. Episode titles like They Are Lying About Charlie Kirk and Who Ordered the Hit aren't rhetorical. They're declarations. She says the messages left behind, the slogans, the memes, the misdirection, were designed to frame someone, anyone. That the case was supposed to end at Robinson, that we were never meant to look beyond his denim and silence. But someone else fired the shot.
All right, you guys, we're going to jump right into this with no introduction. There's a lot that I would like to speak with you guys about. Can't wait to hear your feedback. A lot of lies that are being put out there, narratives that I would say are half-truths or just misrepresentations entirely.
If West's warning was the spark, then Charlie Kirk's final weeks were the tinder. Everything points to a man who wasn't just shifting politically, he was pulling at threads he wasn't supposed to touch. In the last month of his life, Kirk had begun to question the very alliances that made him powerful. Behind closed doors, he told friends he was uneasy about the influence of Israeli donors on American conservative politics, claimed that certain benefactors were trying to steer his message on Gaza, that the cost of dissent was becoming unthinkable. Then barely a week after his assassination, a documentary produced by Ye, titled In Whose Name, appeared online. 9 days. That's how fast it came out. And there was Kirk, posthumously sitting beside Ye and Candace Owens in footage from 2018, silent, stoic, caught in a frame that suddenly looked less like nostalgia and more like a coded message. The timing was uncanny. The release felt orchestrated, like someone wanted Kirk's image frozen in time under someone else's narrative before the truth about his final months could surface.
She really is just the moment. The speech that she gave, everybody was just wowed by her. I felt my energy personally, like last night going into that, I was effectively like soaring in the air above the convention center, like a dragon above, waiting for Erika to just be like, fire. And I was just gonna come down and swoop in out of nowhere. All the politicians, all the fake people, everyone was just gonna be in that moment toast.
We can't ignore how sharply the tone of Owens' broadcasts shifted after that. She started naming names, powerful ones, and drawing lines that connected Kirk's public pivot on Israel to the private fury of the people who funded him. Owens said Kirk had been warned multiple times to stay away from speakers critical of Netanyahu's government. She claimed he'd gone ahead anyway, inviting voices like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith to Turning Point events where they openly questioned Israel's conduct in Gaza. According to Owens, those invitations infuriated a network of pro-Israel financiers, and one of them, billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman, confronted Kirk during an exclusive Hamptons gathering just 3 weeks before his assassination. Owens described it as an intervention. Ackman has published friendly text messages to prove the exchange was cordial, but she called those texts a smokescreen, implying that the real conversation happened off the record. When a man with Ackman's reach goes on public defense mode, something's off. And Netanyahu himself issuing 2 separate denials of any involvement in Kirk's fate? That's not a routine political gesture. That's excessive. If we piece it together, the logic turns cold. Kirk had become inconvenient, too visible, too unpredictable, and too well-connected. The people who once amplified him could no longer trust him. Then he gets taken out in an attack that's too sophisticated for a confused 22-year-old to have planned, and before the dust settles, the FBI has their lone gunman in cuffs. It's all clean, all too fast. Owens says that timeline reeks of internal choreography, that the Bureau wasn't just managing a manhunt, it was managing a narrative. And history gives her cover. The FBI's archives are filled with lightning-fast cases that ended neatly whenever political interests were on the line. When we look at how quickly Robinson was booked, no resistance, no weapon, no confession, it feels less like an arrest and more like a delivery. The story fits because it's supposed to. He's young, unstable, allegedly radicalized. His family's conservative, his roommate is progressive and cooperative. That contrast alone sells the script. It's television logic disguised as justice.
Opposite, which is what was so stunning. It was unbelievable. The forgiveness that she granted, the strength that it took for her to call for that forgiveness, it's just unmatched, and it really made a difference. And I was being serious when I tweeted that I think it was the most consequential speech in American history, a message that...
Owens keeps hammering one point. Why is the Bureau pushing so hard to close the file if so much doesn't add up? The surveillance footage above Kirk's stage was tampered with, ballistics don't match, and yet federal agents told Utah officials that the case must be wrapped with Robinson as the sole perpetrator, or the prosecution might collapse. That's not an investigative directive, that's leverage. Even Governor Spencer Cox, who's trying to keep his political distance, admitted on national television that Robinson isn't cooperating and that the roommate's testimony seems to be carrying the entire case. How many federal investigations hang on the recollections of one witness? Not many. Especially not when the rest of the evidence contradicts her story. The roommate described a radicalization arc that feels scripted. The deep internet, ideological memes, sudden resentment of Kirk's speeches. It's almost as if the Bureau handed her a motive to repeat. And here's where things twist back to Ye, because the way Owens tells it, his warning wasn't about superstition or drama. It was about knowledge. She says Ye has been shown raw footage from In Whose Name that never made the final cut. Footage that allegedly includes a private exchange between Kirk and an unnamed donor in which Kirk says, "I can't keep defending them. It's blood for money." If that scene exists, it explains everything. The urgency of the documentary's release, the defensive denials, and the eerie speed of the cover-up. Of course, the footage hasn't surfaced, the production team won't confirm or deny, but the rumor that it's locked in West's private archive has been spreading like wildfire. Owens claims she's tried to get access and was blocked by someone federal. She said on air that her communications are being monitored and that certain episodes of her podcast have been mysteriously demonetized within minutes. Coincidence or control? Meanwhile, Turning Point America has gone quiet. No one from the organization's upper ranks has commented on Owens' investigation. Not one board member has echoed her questions. The few who have spoken publicly, like Kirk's longtime associate Eric Bolling, have painted Owens as unstable, even opportunistic. They say she's exploiting Kirk's tragedy for relevance. But if that's true, why hasn't the Bureau cleared the inconsistencies she's pointed out? Why hasn't the Department of Justice held a single press conference addressing the contradictory witness accounts? Instead, all the oxygen goes to fringe narratives, trans scapegoating, political extremism, online radicalization, anything that distracts from the central question, who benefits from silencing Charlie Kirk?
If you want people to lose all faith that anyone is going to solve anything, you had a bunch of, if you're going to guy, you had a bunch of other wacky that doesn't make any sense and you spam it out there at the same time. You leave a gun that didn't do it out in the woods. You do a bunch of like that.
Owens has been connecting the dots through back channels. She claims insiders from Turning Point have told her there's a mole inside the organization feeding details to the FBI. Someone who knew Kirk's travel routes, his security schedule, and even his seating plan that day at Utah Valley University. She says this insider arranged for the campus security to thin out minutes before Kirk began speaking. The Bureau has brushed off that claim, calling it unsubstantiated. But Owens says she's seen proof. A text exchange between two local officers referring to federal presence at the venue hours before the event. If that message is real, it suggests the FBI was already there, watching, waiting. It's impossible to separate that from the broader pattern we've seen since the shooting. High-profile figures connected to Kirk's circle are being discredited, suspended, or worse. Jimmy Kimmel's show was briefly pulled after his remarks about the assassination, under pressure from regulators allegedly linked to the Trump administration. Rogan's episodes questioning the official narrative were flagged by streaming platforms for sensitive content. Even conservative outlets that once lionized Kirk have shifted to safer topics. Owens says that silence isn't coincidence, it's fear. She believes the same power that ended Kirk's life is now managing the postscript. And when she says they, she isn't talking about random extremists. She's talking about people who can make federal files vanish, who can flood networks with counter-messaging overnight, who can turn truth into conspiracy at the flick of a switch.
Maybe he thought he was going to shoot him. Maybe he's a patsy. Maybe he did it.
I feel like he's a plant. Did you see the video? Did you see the person doing the investigating on his mom's Facebook?
No.
You haven't seen this? Have you seen that, Jamie? Some dude online.
His mom's got a weird Facebook. I just spilled coffee.
Very trippy. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the more they keep looking into it, the more...
Owens has hinted that she's working with independent investigators, former agents, private analysts, who are reviewing cell tower data and drone footage from the event. She says early results confirm there were at least 2 elevated heat signatures detected in the vicinity of the shooting site, 2 shooters, 2 weapons, 1 narrative. If those findings check out, then Robinson wasn't a scapegoat by accident. He was chosen. Owens thinks his roommate's cooperation was rewarded with immunity, maybe even relocation. She's asked publicly where that person is now because since the initial interviews, they've vanished from the public eye. No social media, no sightings, no statements. We're expected to believe they just want privacy. But in the true crime world, disappearance usually means protection or manipulation. And the strangest thread of all, the note. Governor Cox briefly mentioned it in passing during interviews, that investigators were verifying a message allegedly left by Robinson. According to leaked chat transcripts, it was found in his apartment and contained phrases copied from online forums. But there's one sentence that Owens can't stop repeating. They said it was for the movement. Who is they? No one's answered. And yet, the Bureau insists the note is genuine while refusing to release it. If it really was the ranting of a lone extremist, why keep it sealed?
There are people that look like that have the capability to do that.
Pretty
yes.
accurate.
Nope.
No?
Not hard. Not hard at
Not
all.
hard.
Let me dispel that.
Okay.
Okay. 200 yards from a prone position with a dead-on rifle. So if you have a dead-on rifle, so you set this rifle, you set your 0 to 200 yards, right? You know how far you're going to shoot. It is not hard at all.
He shot a lot.
We're left with a triangle that doesn't balance. A silenced activist, a confused suspect, and a commentator who refuses to drop the case. West's "You're next" now feels less like paranoia and more like foresight. Owens herself has said that unmarked cars have appeared outside her Tennessee property at night. She claims her producer was approached by 2 men in plain clothes asking about her next travel date. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's intimidation, but if the FBI is truly willing to bend a homicide investigation to protect whoever ordered the hit, what are they willing to do to the woman who keeps shouting into the microphone? So we have to ask, what if Candace Owens is right? What if this wasn't random political violence, but a message to every public figure who crosses certain invisible lines? If the Bureau can frame a 22-year-old and bury a national story in less than 48 hours, what happens to the next person who refuses to play along? Are we watching the cleanup of a single scandal, or the quiet rehearsal of something much bigger? Let us know what you think. Is Candace Owens uncovering a state-level cover-up? Or is she playing with forces she can't control? Either way, we'll keep watching. Because if Wes right and she really is next, then this story isn't just breaking, it's about to explode. Stay safe, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one.